there's a method to my madness here with this. Not that there's often a method to any form of madness, but this is my horoscope for today. It doesn't bode well for a guy that's in this business. It never does. The horoscope begins. Keep your opinions to yourself today.
What?
All right, we'll see you guys tomorrow.
I was going to say, how do you do that?
Keep your opinions to yourself today, because if the powers that be, now this would have applied when we were working in, terrestrial structured radio with management that was all paranoid about their own position and really had no idea what you were doing on the air. That was the interesting thing about that business. It's like they didn't give a flying one what you did on the air. They would formulate a quick opinion about whether they liked your show or not, and if it was even remotely unconventional, they didn't like it right away. All right, so keep your opinions to yourself today, because if the powers that be consider what you say to be over the top or in poor taste, it could cost you dearly. Try to remember that not everyone shares your offbeat sense of humor, which is a shame. See, now, gods of astrology have made amends there and said, you know what? They don't get you, but realize that, and you're a lot safer just saying nothing. So no Trump stuff today, all right?
Okay, thanks.
What were you doing with those documents, Tony boy? I mean, what the hell was that?
The time.
Wake up with Defo, joined by Lubie. Welcome to the Defo Show.
It's perfectly justifiable, is it not, Mike Lubie Lubitz? Good morning, everybody. Good to be with you here on this fine Wednesday. Jeff DeForest, Mike Lubie Lubitz, the Defo Show here on South Florida Live. Glad to have you guys along for the ride. Always welcome your comments on the chat line. And it really does embolden us to continue here when we see people making comments on the show. Even if you say the show sucks, it's okay. It's feedback. And all feedback is good, right? No, great to be with you, Jeff DeForest, Mike Lubie Lubitz. You know what? It was never said at that. I don't want to get too heavily into the Trump thing. We always qualify this by saying that, but it is funny to me. I mean, it's more comedy because look, and we're unbiased in our opinion. I don't think Joe Biden is exactly Franklin Delano Roosevelt, right? I mean. I'm not going to try to fool you that this guy's some genius. I mean, he was a sort of nondescript politician his entire career. When they announced, the Democrats, that they were going to run Biden against Trump, who was going to get the Republican nomination in 2016, I thought, wow, that's a great job, man. You did it twice, right? You had Hillary, who was the one candidate that could lose to Trump. And then now you're putting another guy up there, the one guy out of the whole bunch that could lose to Donald Trump. And, sure enough, I guess, we got the win there because we got Trump out of there. But, I mean, Biden, and this might have little meaning to people that are outside the South Florida area, because they probably wouldn't be familiar with how just absolutely vapid this guy was when it came to answering questions. But I think Joe Biden is the Joe Philbin of presidents. I believe that. It would be less compelling to see a Biden State of the Union address than it would to hear a Joe Philbin post-loss, post-game press conference, where he would start by humbly saying, well, I know we're losers, and I really want to congratulate the other team. But it was just this kind of blank look that he had on his face. And, you're thinking this guy is like, a couple of ice cream sandwiches away from checking out, man. He's done. But all right, so I mean, I'm not trying to sugarcoat this Biden presidency. It's had its ups and downs. Lubie says, there've been some good things lately. I believe, the intention of what is attempted to be accomplished, is probably good. Overall, I don't know that all of it is, but nonetheless, I mean, if they would just go ahead and do some bipartisan stuff and compromise, whatever, which I guess they did on the one big issue there, where Biden is trying to, get the country back on track. Look, we're all rooting for the same thing, right? We just want to live good lives. That's why it's so weird that we're so divided over these political issues. But, at that MAGA rally when, Trump was calling the FBI scumbags and saying that they were just a tool of the evil regime and all of this other stuff, and that we can't trust law enforcement anymore, even though he was the guy that was, encouraging people to go beat up cops at the Capitol building. And wreak havoc there. But havoc, I mean, that's a light way of describing it, right? I mean, it was a vicious attack. I mean, one of the most dangerous and ugliest incidents that we've seen in American history. And, the Trumpster was out there. Those are my boys, those Proud Boys.
Exactly.
Yeah. That stupid look on his face. Stupid. Always has that stupid look on his face, like you know that he knows he's lying, but
Oh,
he
yeah.
believes his own lies. That kind of guy. I happen to associate with a guy like that. I know that entire psychopathic behavior where, you end up believing that you actually played for the New York Jets. You're telling your friends who were Jet fans growing up and never heard of you before and could easily go to any internet site and look up the roster from whatever years you're claiming you played for the Jets. And a guy's trying to convince me that he played for the Jets. He's wearing like a Jets jersey with his name on the back. It's like, any asshole could have gone down to a sporting goods store and bought that. That's not going to convince me that you play. I'm in this business. I kind of know. All right.
Yes.
But, you don't have to be anymore to verify things that formerly might have been slightly believable, even though you didn't believe it. Like a guy would say, you know what, I played ball at such and such a place. And, you'd say, okay, yeah, that's possible. You'd have some game. I don't know that you were really a professional, but if you say you played in France, I'll believe it. Right now, you can find out. But I've never heard a guy say, "Hey, listen, I took these documents about the nuclear, strategies of some other country home. Just I was going to read them on the beach." What were you doing with this stuff, Donnie?
He has yet to say. He hasn't said once.
What
And
was
the
the
people that
reason
defend
for it? Yeah,
won't say why. They just yell about that they took them, which I
no,
find weird. It's like, okay, but you're admitting that they were bad. Like you're not fighting that they were bad.
no.
Like you're just glossing over that.
It's their fault for coming again, and after they asked me for this stuff like 1,000 times in a zillion different fashions. Please, Donnie, give us the documents, huh? You're hanging on to this shit. I mean, how about why did you have them in the first place? That's all we want to know. Nice, easy explanation would diffuse everything. We wouldn't have all this screaming rhetoric,
He doesn't have
and it
them.
would be all over with. I mean, the answer would either be satisfying to the people that are involved here, or they would say, that's a criminal act there, Donnie boy. Any way you look at it. Anyway, all right, that's my political rhetoric for today. I've never found myself in this position before. I can't say that. You're wondering where this is going.
Can't even finish the statement.
It's an odd way to preface this next, idea that we're going to, peruse here on the show. But I mean, I don't know. How about you, Libby? There's enough sports out there for me to be satisfied with whatever is going on at the time. Rarely do I find myself in wild anticipation of the beginning, especially of the NFL season, because it's one of those things where, in sports talk in particular, here in the deep South, South Florida, there was too much emphasis, in my opinion, on football. I mean, it took me a while to come to accept that because I was living in California. There, football wasn't even that big of a deal. It was, but I mean, obviously, you had USC and UCLA, and they were prominent at the time. This was mid '70s to early '80s. And they were rolling, right? And you just accepted that USC was going to have a great team, be in contention for the national championship. UCLA was going to be the redheaded stepchild who got some of the leftovers that USC wasn't able to procure as recruits. The Rams were going to be okay sometimes, and for the most part, not so great, although they had some great players. And they did go to a Super Bowl during that period of time with Vince Ferragamo quarterbacking the team. There were quarterback controversies there. They had a lot of interesting storylines, including the whole racism thing about the quarterback position. Of course, this is where Al Campanis, was residing there with the Dodgers. Had to leave the organization after like 60 years in disgrace because Joe Frazier fell to the bottom of the pool in the Superstars competition, and he decided to make the statement to the public there in front of Ted Koppel and a Nightline audience of millions that black people lack buoyancy. It's like,
What does that
where the fuck did you come up with that?
mean?
And why are you saying that now, Al?
Where'd your skin color?
Was not a bad guy. Al Campanis, well respected by everybody. I mean, he was emblematic of Dodger baseball, as much so as Tommy Lasorda for a long period of time. But that one time where he got a little flabbergasted there, maybe showing signs of dementia, he appeared to be making statements that were of a racist nature. And essentially, they were of a racist nature. But I mean, I don't know that he, in and of himself, was
That's what he's
inherently
racist.
racist. I don't want to believe that. I really don't. I just think he got caught up and tongue tied, and things came out badly. And this was at sort of the beginning of this sort of sensitivity. And that's a lot of sort ofs in one sentence there, Libby. Am I a little off my game here today? I don't know. But yeah, I mean, I don't think he really meant any harm. I believe Campanis was instrumental in, kind of integrating the league a little bit. I don't know that he was Branch Rickey, but, he was one of those type of guys that sort of went against the grain in that sense. And yeah, but I mean, forever when you think of Al Campanis, what do you think of? You don't think of his career as a general manager or front office guy in Major League Baseball. You think of him on Ted Koppel saying that Joe Frazier couldn't swim. Which I think it was an odd conclusion to draw that black people lack buoyancy, and therefore there was an equation to the fact that they may not have the mental capacities. That's where we got in trouble. Well, I mean, rightfully so, I guess. I mean, it's an inflammatory statement there,
Right.
but do certain things in sports. And that was a big issue with James Harris, right? They kind of labeled James Harris as a dummy. We should have talked to John. Well, John Feinstein kind of mentioned this. He has a book about what was it? I forget the early part. The last part is like take a knee or something.
Raise a fist, take a knee.
Yeah, when he's talking about racism in sports, and he got into that whole thing. Feinstein. I'm sure I haven't read the book. There's a surprise, but and just discussing it with him and happening, to have been in L.A. when that story was, very much in focus. It seemed unfair, huh? That James Harris, this big strapping dude who could, throw the ball, 100 yards down the field, was losing a starting job to Pat Hayden, who was, essentially like taking a midget wrestler out of a Volkswagen and popping him out there. Well, the guy couldn't see over the lineman's ass. I mean, he was like 5'7". Cerebral guy, went to USC. Pat Hayden, very sharp guy, eventually became, the athletic director there. And I'm not sure how people would judge his tenure.
It didn't go well.
It didn't go too well, yeah. They were getting all those recruits from the actors who were paying money to have the swim coach offer them a scholarship and yanking one from the football team or whatever that scam was. Whatever happened to the main guy in that whole scam? That that whole deal where people were getting like 4 or 5 months in prison. What happened to the main guy? I've never seen where he was sentenced.
I don't know.
The mastermind of the whole thing. First one in usually gets the lightest treatment.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Right.
They ran out.
They were going to give this guy. This guy was going to do some time, but I don't know that has he been sentenced yet. This guy. They've had people in and out of jail already that were involved in his case. Kind of crazy stuff. But yeah, I mean, it wasn't the main focus there in California, even though the USC kind of was. But it wasn't like you were counting the minutes until the football season started. And I don't think that's true in other places. I mean, obviously they're very excited about the football season in New York, although for what reason? They don't really have any college teams to speak of. I don't know. Is Rutgers considered a New York team? Syracuse is talked about when it comes to the basketball season, but I would hardly consider Syracuse to be an imminent part, or an integral part of New York City basketball. Because I mean, it's out there in the woods, man. It's 5 hours away, Lubie. Would you consider that part of New York City? Syracuse University? Not even close.
It would be St. John's, but St. John's.
St. John's, yeah. They've been lousy for a long time.
So you just glom on to whoever you can.
St. John's used to be big, yeah. I mean, Philadelphia college basketball with the Big Five, very, very big. Is it big in New Jersey college basketball? Seton Hall, Rutgers?
Yeah, Seton Hall for sure. Yeah.
Fairleigh Dickinson?
It's just college football is not big. Like I don't know who. Do they support Penn State? Like college football is just not a big deal.
No, it never was to me. I remember going to my first Syracuse game when I got to school there, and I wasn't even inclined to have any deep-rooted interest in college football. I thought, oh, yeah, they have a good football team, or supposedly so. They had Zonka the year before I got there. We had Rich Pretorius, who wore number 44, and unfortunately wore it right out of the history of the school. It was never prominent again. Rob Conrad, our good friend from the Dolphins, wore 44 there. That was a big tradition, man. I mean, think about the guys that had that number. My God.
Brown.
Yeah, the whole string ended when I got there in 1969.
It's like me at FSU. FSU had gone to 3 straight title games. I go there. It's the beginning of the end of Bobby Bowden.
Yeah. Then you had Ernie Davis. You had Jim Brown, Floyd Little, Jim Nance.
Oh, man.
and Larry Zonka in succession at running back, and then I think it was Roger Pretorius was the running back there. It might have been a quarterback. He wore number 44, and that was it. Total decline after that. And the old man was senile at that point. I mean, the coach was Schwartzwalder, old Ben. Done, finished, man. I mean, I had a little bit of minor contact with him through my activities with the baseball team. And the facilities weren't what they are today on a college campus. So if you had a locker, there was a good chance that somewhere nearby was going to be like a member of the football team. And I remember sometimes seeing Schwartzwalder rolling through there, and I thought, who's that? And I thought it was somebody's grandfather, but it was the fabled Ben Schwartzwalder. Which was interesting because the coach of the baseball team was a guy named Andy Mogish, who I call the Buzzard, and it was a nickname. I have a habit of having ascribe people various nicknames that stick, right? So now everybody was calling this guy the Buzzard because he really looked like an old buzzard. It was just "Rah, rah." And I think he was the only guy on the campus there that was older than Schwartzwalder. And he was like 90. He didn't know what inning it was. I mean, he had no idea what the hell was going on in his games. It was kind of comical because we were all smoking weed and, got a big kick out of observing that the coach was absolutely inept. Nice enough guy. Wasn't a bad guy. I mean, he didn't wish anybody any evil. And yet, I mean, and Schwartzwalder, I'm not sure who was more senile, Mogish, the Buzzard, or the great Ben Schwartzwalder. Nice career he had, man. I mean, could he recruit running backs? Imagine that was their string of running backs at Syracuse over like a 20-year span.
They're all Hall of Fame.
Jim Brown, Ernie Davis, Jim Nance, who's overlooked as one of the great running backs in pro football history, right? When he went to the Buffalo Bills, this guy was unstoppable. And you had Floyd Little and Larry Zonka.
Yeah.
Holy shit, what happened to that school? I guess people don't run the ball as much anymore.
Northeast. Like, I want to get out of fucking New York.
They couldn't win the Big East Conference. Oh, my God. Yeah, no, that's been in decline. But this is the first time in a long time, Louie, I'm actually, and I watch a ton of sports. You know that. I've been enthralled in the U.S. Open. I wasn't as involved with it last night as I have been on previous days and nights because went out last night. And, Coco Gauff, I guess, went down. I did see that match while I was at a place called the Tipperary Pub, which featured some very, very tasteful music on a Tuesday night. You would not expect this, walking into a place like that. It's one of the real, charms of some of the South Florida establishments that you might walk in. And I went there because I saw a little post on Facebook that my, one of my favorite guitar players, Matt Schofield, was going to be featured with the house band that night. Just walking in and playing for free, right? No cover charge, nothing. You go in there. I'm not sure that Mayo would have given it 4 stars for the food, but he is a little bit picky. Now that he's only eating vegetables, though, I mean, he might have, because what did we have? We had a chicken Caesar wrap. Is that on his caloric count, man? The guy's out there yesterday on his show with a calculator. Well, I had a carrot stick. It was 4 calories. I drank water. Count that as 1 calorie. Like, man, what are you doing, man? This was a guy that was eating muffalettas, the size of his head, just a few days earlier at Tom Tanazzini's place up there in Boynton Beach, and took it with 2 hands and just shoveled it in his face. We have it on camera. It's on tape.
Yep.
It's archived. And now the guys, that was a little bit, of a departure from what we've been looking at. I don't know that that's going to work, the calorie count with Mike Mayo. When he was counting calories up to like 10,000 a day, that was good. That was
fun.
Entertainment. But, watching a guy, and he keeps mentioning this keto diet. Nobody even knows what that is, right? What exactly is that? Don't eat anything good is usually the situation with most diets, right? If you just eliminate anything that you really like, now you're on a diet.
It's low or no carbs for the most part.
All right, well, we'll see how that goes. But look, I'm rooting for the kid. I really am. You are too. I know that.
Oh, 100%. I want him to be okay. The way he was eating wasn't sustainable, but we can't go the other way either, where he's just eating broccoli and carrots. Like, there's gotta be...
and then you're going to take an over-under on your blood pressure numbers. Unbelievable. Oh, yeah. I see like 160 on the top there, Mike. What did he put it at? 158 and a hook, something like that.
I don't care. I care because I want to be okay, but I don't care to actually remember.
160 over 90, they start looking at you kind of funny, right?
Yeah, it's supposed to be 120 over
You
70.
go, are you on any medication? That was always the question I got. I had high blood pressure my whole life. And it's under control now, which is good. I don't know. I'm taking a couple of medications. I don't even know if I'm supposed to still be taking them because I think the last time I went to a doctor was 3 years ago when I got, prescribed these pills. No, I've had a couple of checkups since. I'm not really afraid of going and doing that. I just, who really wants to know, huh? It's very important. Maybe it is. I guess, stuff could be going on inside that you have no idea about. So it's worth getting checked out. I mean, especially if you want to, you keep this whole thing going. So you can get to my point, which is the football season is around the corner here.
It's here.
I mean, it's like
Tomorrow.
36 hours away.
Yes,
Now,
sir.
are people going to be in a mad scramble? We'll have to get the consultation from Jim Sarni on this, our television critic expert, because he did that for
Tomorrow's
a living.
NBC. Tomorrow and either Thanksgiving or Christmas. The Thursday game is NBC.
Oh, it is? Okay.
The rest of the season is Amazon Prime. But they supposedly worked out some really, DirecTV or whatever, worked out some really interesting packages with bars and restaurants where every bar or restaurant should have.
That's what I was thinking, though.
So
this may resurrect the time.
If
Remember
you're
when
a
you used to plan like way in advance? Where's everybody going for Monday Night Football? I mean, and I remember doing this, because Monday Night Football came into existence, I believe, when I was a freshman or sophomore in college, right? And it was the Jets and the Browns. I remember watching that game with a bunch of guys, and we were like, wow, this is awesome, right? Had a little 13-inch TV screen somebody had in their dorm room, and we're all watching. We were all, a lot of Jet fans there at the Q's. Because half the population had schlepped there from Long Island. They may as well have just set up a Leonard's of Great Neck right there in Syracuse and had them cater everything. But I remember watching that game, and then it became a thing, right? It was kind of like the same thing with Saturday Night Live. When Saturday Night Live was good back in the days with Aykroyd and Belushi and that whole crew. I mean, it was a brilliant show back then, and they used to get together to have Saturday Night Live watch parties. And the same thing with Monday Night Football. But that seemed to dissipate. When you go to bars now for a Monday Night Football game, it's almost like an afterthought. Like you have to tell the guy to switch off CNN.
Yes.
Or Bloomberg TV, a bunch of stock quotes are crawling by there for the one out to Cocker that lives at the Galt, who's following. Did Shell Oil go up? I have just bought some shares. My broker recommended. Right. I mean, it's almost like an afterthought. But I think this Thursday Night Football being on Amazon is going to be a great enhancement and a jolt in terms of the economy of most bars. And maybe it gets people going out again and getting together to watch a game. Is that possible?
And most people I know have Amazon, but still, I mean, it's a good excuse. And
if you can't find a game, I don't know. I have it, so I could watch these games at home. But
Amazon's taking over the world.
Now, is it coincidence or is it going to be a habit that these Thursday night games are blockbuster games?
I think they're going to make it a point. I mean, Amazon paid a lot of money, and that's all they get is Thursday. So,
right.
I think they are going to make it a point that these games are good games. Now, I wonder.
You're not getting Texans, versus some other schmank team.
I think that's another thing. Look, a lot of the time these games are supposed to be good. The Monday Night Football games aren't supposed to be bad. It's the season happens, and that's why you're not worried about the Dolphins' schedule so much. Because once the season happens, you find out, oh, this team really isn't that good. Oh, this team is good. So I think flexing is involved, where they're going to flex better games into Thursday. What I'm curious about is, what does ESPN do? Like, you joked about it, but you paid all that money for Buck and Aikman. You're not going to want good games? They've had ass games on Mondays.
Yeah. No, they really they soil their pants when they saw the schedule come out of Monday Night Football games, the executives at ESPN. It didn't matter that they had Louis Riddick babbling through the entire game.
Like no one's watching.
He wouldn't say this, but I met up with John Kajemi yesterday briefly with Tommy Fox. Nice. As we consummated the deal there at Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill. And I brought up, I told John, because I thought John was great, man. I mean, he didn't overstate things. He was just a spot-on color analyst during the 20-some-odd years that he was working with ESPN.
It was great, yeah.
Yeah, he was very good. I mean, he wasn't going to give you like a ton of flashy things, but, very subtly on target with everything that he had to say. The kind of stuff that you want. Oh, what would you want from a color analyst? But astute analysis
I was
of
gonna
what
say
was
he was
happening.
annoying. You've opened my eyes to just how annoying it can be. He
Yeah,
was annoying.
yeah. I mean, this wasn't the booger man, or any of these other guys that were trying too hard. Who was the tight end from the Cowboys? Was
Oh,
awful.
Waiting. Oh God, Waiting.
Yeah, Witten. Yeah, yeah. Well, he just was boring as all
He was
hell.
just
But
rough. Yeah, he was just
he was sort of monotone, over, sophisticated in the terminology and all of this, and just too enthusiastic to explain detail of plays. The next play is already going right, and he's still talking about how the tight end missed the block over here. It was just enough already, right? But John was great. And so I said to him, geez, John, they're very exciting games. The only problem I have, how does ESPN have you, out of the picture, OOP, as they say in dog racing, and I have to take like more Lewis Riddick. So he's telling me that he met Riddick, and I said, and Riddick's probably seems like a good guy. I don't know. I mean, it seems like a very likable fellow. He just never shuts up after every play, never. And I don't know that all this theory is in play on every play. Not sure that you really need to go back through the entire. It's like the guy that asks a question and gives you the whole history of the sport, and then Lubie, and then says, "So what do you think about that?" At the end of like a 45-minute question. And he said that he met Riddick once, and he seemed like a nice enough guy, but he was having a conversation with him and another guy at some a meeting, I guess, at ESPN when he was there, and that he said something to Riddick, and then he was going to add some more stuff in, but Riddick was still talking.
there you go.
So he just eventually said, "Nice meeting you, Lewis. Love your work." All right, we're going to introduce a gentleman to you named Marc Nudelberg. Marc Nudelberg. That is, not my dentist, Dr. Nudelberg, but Marc Nudelberg, and he is an FSU graduate, and he coached under Jimbo Fisher, which is Lubie's favorite. So I'm sure he'll have some questions there about what that was all about. And also coached the Florida Gators on the staff of the Florida Gators, and was involved in this for over 14 years. And he has a book coming out, and he does a daily podcast streaming show like we do, but this one's called The Daily Huddle. And we're going to help introduce the book to you, and also some of the thoughts of Marc Nudelberg. Should be interesting, right, with what's going on in Florida football. Is it coming back, Lubie? What do you think? Are we coming back?
I don't know if we're as good as people want. Like, people are all on the Gators. To me, that game was more about Utah not finishing than the Gators winning, but
Yeah.
everyone's excited about the Gators. Florida State was good for about 80% of that game, so it's about them learning how to close. And the Canes played Cookman, so I don't know what to do. Look, they housed within Cookman. So look, at least the three of them are undefeated, and they look like they have fun, young coaches that may make them relevant. That's where I think they are now, and we'll see if they take another step.
This has changed, huh? Yeah, no, that's a good point about the coaches. It feels like maybe, and this could turn out to be anything but the truth. But
I'm very wary of that.
no, I was impressed. I actually tuned in for a few minutes. I saw Billy Napier being interviewed, and I was trying to figure out who the new Mick Hubert is. And I didn't really catch the guy's name, but he was just perfect for the part. One of those nondescript guys that has a good voice and everything. And he said all the right things on the coaches show. He handled it pretty well, as coaches shows go. But I was impressed with Napier. He seemed like a real down-to-earth sort of guy. That might be the type of guy that has great success there with the Florida Gators, and off to a rocking start with this quarterback who everybody's in love with now. Like 100 to 1 to win the Heisman. What do you think? Heisman? No?
I don't think so.
You couldn't bet on a Florida
I think
Gator if he was a cinch to win Heisman. If you knew he already had the Heisman through some subversive arrangement,
no way.
you still wouldn't bet on him to win the Heisman.
No way. He could have the Heisman, and I would still say, yeah, there's no way. I'm gonna give it. Tebow was winning, breaking records, and I'm like, oh, Tebow's overrated.
Yeah.
Literally, that's I was saying that.
He was good in college, man, under the Spurrier system. I mean, not the Spurrier system, the
it was Urban, your favorite.
Urban Meyer system, yeah. Urban Meyer, man, who would figure? Wow, the fact that he was teaching a course in character and integrity.
Perfect.
That is just a classic.
Spot on.
Ohio State. I mean, how are they never under investigation for anything? Shit like that going on. Come on. How unscrupulous do you have to have Urban Meyer on your staff teaching a course in character assassination? Maybe no, he doesn't really do that. I mean, but when he kicked that poor guy in the balls that had missed a field goal in an exhibition game, it's a little over the top there. I mean, that makes Woody Hayes look like a lightweight when it came to that sort of violence. Bobby Knight. She's got a bad rap compared to Urban Meyer. All right, we're coming back with more in a moment here. Hialeah Park, just a beautiful place to go, man. And they were rocking over the weekend, Labor Day weekend. They always do a lot of special things there. And, wow, I mean, it's just incredible. 9 years since what was sort of a, seeming like a pipe dream of the great John Brunetti Sr. And now here they are with this casino that's just absolutely fantastic. And then on top of that, they have the poker room and the champion simulcasting room. Great food and drink all over the place. Entertainment galore on the weekends. You're dancing away there. They have that Latin vibe, man. And it just gets you going. It gets you feeling like, hey, you know what? Get busy living or get busy dying. You're energized. You're enthusiastic about things because you're in there in a winning atmosphere, and it's just a great thing to be a part of. I love it. I've always loved Hialeah Park. I think you're going to love it too. Check out the casino there with all your favorite Vegas-style games. Get a player's card when you come through the door. It gets you all kinds of rewards and amenities that you won't find very uncommon to other reward systems, right? Sometimes you stick your card in the machine there. You've been playing for like 3 straight days. You're on a 72-hour gambling binge, and it says your credits are 0, and you're entitled to nothing. Not the case there, Hialeah Park. Whammo, man. They put money on your card right away there in terms of free play. It's just absolutely fantastic. Check out the calendar of events at HialeahPark.com, and make sure you make your plans, clear your social calendar, and plan a visit to Hialeah Park. All right, we're coming back with more. Marc Nudelberg going to join us here. We'll get some insight into the Canes, Gators, and, well, I guess, Florida State, even more substantially there. Lubie, are you going to grill him about the Jimbo Fisher era?
Not to grill him. I like that era. I think Jimbo limped away, but I mean, we won a title. You are harder on Jimbo than I am. I just didn't like how he left. I mean,
I thought he was a bit of a fraud. You know me and fraud.
I'm not stupid. Like, take your money. FSU wasn't giving him that money, so go get paid. It was just the way he left. Like, the stories you heard when he left sort of sucked.
I don't mean to enrage Tony Segreto. He's going to be joining us at 8 o'clock here. But, I mean, when a coach like Jimbo is giving you it's all about the kids, and I love this university speech.
Yeah. What are you going to do?
And he's already negotiated a deal to leave to Texas A&M, and he's got oil dripping off of his eyebrows there.
Exactly.
And he just took somebody's money to go completely against all of the principled disciplines that he was talking about and trying to impart to his kids. He wanted no part of any of it and just took the money and ran, right? And then left them, unfortunately, I mean, right up there. I mean, dereliction of duty, right? Those last 45 days of the Trumpster, not exactly a glorious era in the history of American presidency. All right, we're coming back with more in a moment. Now that.
The time.
For some reason, I keep hearing Mayo counting calories in my head here. He didn't even eat a thing on the show yesterday. Did you notice that? That was a record. I think that's the first time. He's coming up at 12 o'clock here on South Florida Live. It is 7:34. In style at Champions, the outstanding simulcasting room at beautiful Hialeah Park. Yes, the grand old lady of thoroughbred racing has never been more vibrant, and you can wager on the races from the top tracks around the country while enjoying a cocktail at the Brass Rail Bar or any of the fine food served throughout the facility. If poker is your game, you're covered in style, and you can play all your favorite Vegas-style games, including blackjack, craps, and roulette, in Hialeah Park's sizzling hot casino. Get a player's card when you walk through the door for all kinds of generous amenities, including our favorite, free play, when you come out to the ultimate casino and entertainment destination, Hialeah Park.
Hey folks, Tony Segreto here. Since day one, Catholic Health Services has been part of Old School. And since we've started letting people know about them, it's changed their lives. You see, Catholic Health Services, while being recognized as one of the top places for stroke rehab in the country, it's also about a group of people who not just excel in what they do, from the doctors to the nurses to the therapist, on and on and on. It's how they do what they do every single day that separates them from the pack. They do it with a passion, unmatched, and the inclusion of family in every step of the process. Trust me when I tell you this. If you want the best unmatched rehab with a special group of skilled, caring people, there is truly only one place, and that one place is Catholic Health Services.
These days, we're all looking for comfort anywhere we can find it. Thank goodness for Landlubbers Raw Bar and Grill in the Plantation location, because they are making sure you are as comfortable as possible. First of all, they're not only open for delivery and pickup. All you have to do is go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both pickup and free delivery. Their hours have changed a little bit. Monday through Thursday from 3:30 to 10, and Friday, Saturday, and Sunday from 11:30 to 10. You're going to have the best wings in the world. You're going to have a great burger. You're going to have their amazing soups. Again, Landlubbers Raw Bar and Grill. It's nice and easy. Just go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both your pickup and free delivery. Thank goodness for Landlubbers for making you always feel right at home.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I couldn't get your question.
You were a coach that you coached all kinds of teams. You had teams that...
Hey, say it in English. Dad, you got it?
Enjoy your trip to work with lots of laughs thanks to Defo and Lubie. Now on the Defo Show.
Part of Bobby Bowden's lasting legacy is stopping Mike Lubitz in mid-sentence there and asking for a translator as he was asking his idol a question in one of his early radio spots. Welcome back to the show, the Defo Show. Jeff DeForest, Mike Lubitz, that handsome gentleman you see on your screen if you're watching the video stream here on South Florida Live is a gentleman named Marc Nudelberg. And as we said, we mentioned in promoting the fact that he was going to be on a show, has a book coming out tomorrow, which we always find, I mean, that's a heck of an accomplishment. Just putting enough words together to constitute a book. And this one is called Family, Football, and Failure. And there's a hyphen there, leadership. That's all in the title. Mark, welcome to the show. Good to have you on.
Thanks, guys. It's a pleasure to be joining you this morning. Defo, I don't know if you recognize the name or not, but
yes, I do. Are you related to
that is my
Michael
father,
or
Steve Nudelberg, and so
right.
So I have to say hello for him. And I remember running around the studios back at 560 way in the day as a kid, and when you were doing your thing. So it's cool to be here. It's a pretty cool moment for me coming up as a kid in South Florida. And Lubie, hearing Coach Bowden's voice again, I was privileged to work with him in the early days of my career. That's a classic line of all time for sure.
Oh, no doubt about it, man.
Fun.
Here was Lubie. I mean, schwitzing. He had a flop sweat going. Bobby was coming on his high school football show we were doing on 1470 AM, which oddly enough, things go full circle. And we're doing something with these people again. But we were at Landlubbers Restaurant in Plantation there. And I think there was a pretty good crowd on hand. And then Bobby's there on the phone. And immediately he jumps right in there and says, what is this? He couldn't have been an easier interview to do. I mean, you could have said it's like interviewing Don King, where you go, "Hey, Don, how you doing?" And the next thing you know, an hour later, he's finishing up.
That's exactly right. I've got some great stories from my time with Coach Bowden, working with him on game day towards the end of his career, where there were some times he would look at me and say some things like, "What the hell is going on out there?" You know?
Yeah. No, he was great. All right. Now you get your start there. Now you coached at FSU and with the Florida Gators. I didn't realize this because Steve never mentioned any of this, your father.
Sure.
And he was one of the more dynamic salespeople in South Florida radio history at a time where the business was just absolutely booming. I mean, he was a big maca down here, no doubt about it. Knew what he was doing. And was always like, isn't he doing like some kind of motivational thing now? So that would speak to the genes that you have to be a coach.
Him and I have partnered in developing a coaching agency now. As you said, he was iconic in building his career down here in South Florida. Transitioned from the radio business or really from the cell phone business to the radio business, built a digital marketing agency. And now we really help people, develop their leadership within their organizations, develop their sales processes. He was early into the game on LinkedIn. And when I transitioned out of coaching, I had a 10-year coaching career, like you mentioned, took me from places like Florida State to the University of Cincinnati to Florida to Nevada, and then ultimately to Lafayette College before I stepped away. But when I transitioned out, he really gave me a lot of the tools that helped me become successful, leveraging LinkedIn and building my own business down here. So now we're partnered together and doing that for organizations to help them modernize their sales processes and develop their people into being high performers.
Sounds good. Now, how did you get into the coaching thing? And tell us a little bit about that whole experience. You mentioned you had a few stops along the way, including two of the iconic, as you said, programs. Certainly here in the state of Florida, Florida State and Florida. So curious to see what you gained from those
Sure.
experiences.
You grow up in South Florida where football is just a staple. I was not gifted as an athlete, but enjoyed playing the game in high school. And when I decided not to take a scholarship to a smaller school in the Northeast, my high school coach at that time, Dave Mervis, was very friendly with Andy Urbanek, who was the AD at Florida State at that time. And he said, hey, there's opportunities for you to be able to work with the team that aren't, being on the team. And I was like, what does that look like? What is it? It turned out it was a scholarship position to be an equipment manager. And that was my entry into the organization. And through my undergrad years, I grew underneath Coach Bowden and that old staff to become a student assistant when Jimbo Fisher got brought in as the offensive coordinator. And what a time that was to be at Florida State with Bobby as the head coach, Jimbo as the OC, and Chuck Amato as the DC, because it was almost like being on two different football teams at the same time. You had the defense that were doing their own thing with Coach Amato and Coach Andrews. You had Jimbo with a staff that he had brought in. Essentially, pretty much everybody on that staff was his. And there was the head coach and waiting thing going on. So it was a really interesting time to be involved with that organization. Then when I graduated, Jimbo became the head coach and he offered me a full-time position as the special teams quality control. So I got introduced to Eddie Grant at that time, who was a South Florida legend in recruiting and just a great ball coach. He became my mentor, and that led me to, lots of opportunities. Got the opportunity to work with Coach Tuberville at the University of Cincinnati, then Coach McElwain at the University of Florida, then Brian Polian at the University of Nevada. But ultimately, what you find out in that business is if you don't have a last name or you're not some kind of blood relation, it is a uphill battle for you to stay in that profession. And so after 10 years, I took the leadership lessons and the organizational structure lessons and the lessons about creating high performers. And now I'm doing what I'm doing today with my dad.
Oh, it sounds extremely interesting. And you mentioned some characters there. I mean, could you possibly have anticipated that Tommy Tuberville would eventually become a senator? Very much, a central piece in the whole January 6th thing, as the Trumpster was calling him and saying, hey, what are we supposed to do here? The entire time. And Tuberville wanted no part of it, man. I just remember Tuberville having a very hot wife when he was an assistant coach. I think he was, offensive coordinator at the University of Miami?
Suzanne, I think he was actually the defensive coordinator, but Suzanne was there in Cincinnati with us, had the opportunity to meet her. Suzanne actually worked for my dad.
Still with the same woman? Yeah.
Back in the day.
All right, yeah. Because she was quite an attraction there when he would roll up into the press box for a couple of post-game cocktails.
Sure.
And, was Jimbo, did you sense Marc Nudelberg? And this is Marc Nudelberg. He has a book out, Family Football and Failure Leadership. And I can tell you from knowing his dad, I mean, this was one of those guys get up at a sales meeting and motivate a bunch of the most lacking in motivation sales crew that had just been bombing out and putting zeros on the board for months and months. And all of a sudden, they go charging out of the room to their cars, start banging on doors of donut shops and going, hey, man, you're going to buy this stuff and it's going to be good for you. No, it's great.
I love that.
Yeah, no, it's true. He was a real go-getter. But, was Jimbo, did you sense that Jimbo, it sounds like you had, the good side, of Jimbo, was favoring you as he furthered your coaching career. But did you sense that he was waiting for Bobby to get hit by a bus in Tallahassee?
There was definitely some
every day
there, I think.
Yeah.
I you could sense that he was ready to run it the way he thought it should be run. And having come from working with Nick Saban at LSU, he knew the process, he knew the structure, he knew what it looked like, what needed to be in place. And the reality is that we hadn't really changed anything at Florida State since the 90s and the early 2000s of when they were winning. So at that point, we were a decade past the innovation of what had happened with the way teams were practicing, the way people were recruiting, what people were doing to be successful. So there was definitely some edge to getting him ready, for being in that seat. But then it was interesting because once he took over, I kind of got a master class in what it was like to change a culture, but then what happens once it's changed and how you get to sustaining it. I think, Nick Saban is unbelievable at what he does in creating the process, in, focusing on the attention to detail and holding everybody in the organization accountable to a standard of winning. But he does it in what's innately his own way, right? He's created that, and he does it as his authentic self. From having worked with a lot of guys who came from that Saban tree, I think the mistake that most of them make is they replicate trying to be Nick instead of trying to be themselves inside of the system that they want to implement. And so I think, it starts to get tuned out a little bit. And when there's a little bit more bark than bite, and not everybody's being held accountable to the same standards, it's hard to create a solid culture. And so a lot of that is what I talk about in the book, are these lessons that I learned about how to create winners, how to create the right kinds of organizations. And what I say was, I was privileged to work with some of the best and some of the worst leaders in the business. And sometimes being with the worst was better than being with the best, because I learned what not to do so much as what to do.
That's interesting, because that's what I was going to talk to you about. Is you were both with FSU. Cincinnati's become sort of a bigger program, even though on the smaller scale. Florida, Nevada, who's hung around, had some success, and Lafayette. You've been covered college football from all levels, and we're seeing sweeping change. You talk about changes, sweeping changes across college football as recently as now. We're going to have 12 playoff teams starting in 2026. You were one of the guys on the come up who was trying to break through. Where do you see this all going? NIL has made it pretty much the NFL light. Will college football be college football going forward? Like, to me, it just feels like it's the G League. And we've heard coaches even talk about it. Yeah, it's the G League. Like, what does that mean?
I think it's been something that's been happening for decades. Right? I don't think this is new. I think we've been moving towards this as the TV deals have gotten bigger, as the head coaches' contracts have gotten bigger. That separation between coaching staff and player has only, grown over the years. I think we're headed in the right direction for the sport. Is it going to be the right direction for the schools? Is it going to be the right direction for the ADs? Probably not. But the reality is that the business is way bigger than anything they could have imagined decades ago. And I think Jim Harbaugh, who I don't normally agree with much of the things he says, said something that was very, very intelligent, which was the players should get a piece of the revenue, right? Like, they're creating the TV deals. Without them, there is no. And so if you look at the professional leagues, there's this collective bargaining agreement. There's these revenue shares. I think that's where we're heading. I think what the playoff did was allow the conferences enough time to figure it out, to figure who is going to be on the next wave. And essentially, you're going to end up with two major conferences that maybe incorporate 50 of the teams in the country. And then you're going to get a 12-team playoff out of those two conferences. And you're going to have something that is far bigger and different than anything that has been in the history of college football.
Couldn't help but think. I was feeling a little something. Can you tell your uncle, Dr. Michael Nudelberg, who takes care of my teeth, to cut me a break on this? He's got like a bridge over the River Kwai he's got to put in there. And then I have nightmares about your uncle having his knee in my chest when he was pulling some teeth as we were getting this. I believe him to be the most remarkable troubleshooting dentist in the business. If there's a problem that no one else can fix or doesn't even want to touch, like other dentists say, well, it'll be $40,000, but I don't even want to do it if you have the money on you right now. And he would, get the job done. But
he finds a way to get it
does
done.
a very nice job. Yeah, I don't know if he takes care of your teeth or not, but they look great, by the way.
I
which is
appreciate
fantastic.
that. He has since I was a kid.
All good stuff. All right, tell us about the book here and what we're going to find inside of it. We kind of have an idea.
So for those of you that are watching on the restream, there's the cover.
Wow, there it is.
Family,
Nice.
Football, and Failure. And ultimately, I was fortunate to grow up inside of a family that was led by my dad, as you mentioned him a bunch of times. And I grew up in a family of entrepreneurs. And what that meant is they were willing to take responsibility for the business and for themselves day in and day out. That principle is what led me to be successful as a college coach. I was fortunate to be a special teams coordinator and run a third of the game. I had great mentors that helped me get to where I got to, but it was the fundamentals that were laid for me from my family about work ethic, about discipline, about relationship, about process, that when I got into football, it clicked for me very well to be able to take what they were doing, apply those principles. So the book is those stories. The book are those principles. The book is that game plan of success that I've used to move from arena to arena that have continued to serve me well throughout my life.
Oh, your dad, a great example of that. I mean, if you wanted to define the idea of to be successful in sales, look prosperous, which was something that a guy said to me when I was like 14 and I was selling souvenirs at Shea. I had like one pennant and I'm walking around the stands there. He says, look prosperous. And he hands me like another 100 pennants. Like these things should be flying off the shelf.
Yeah.
He was the example of that. That was for sure. So we wish you the best of luck with the book. It was a pleasure having you on the program. Very, very interesting story. I'm sure there's a lot more to tell. So that might be incentive for people to pick up the book and get a good read there. And what was it, McElwain that you were thinking of? As a guy that gave you the example of everything not to do.
I can't say.
What a strange cat he was, man. I mean, how would you describe him? If you could capsulize, what it was like to be around Jim McElwain, who was coaching the Gators, because it looked good for a while there, and then fell completely. I mean, what a pratfall this guy took.
So I think one of the biggest lessons I learned from that situation was you can't overcome the people you surround yourself with. And while I think Coach McElwain had all of the right intentions and he had an innate ability to connect with the players and get them to play for him, he did not surround himself with a staff that served him well. And he was not willing to own that or make a change in that. And therefore, the writing's on the wall, and you're either going to go down with the ship or you're going to make the changes necessary. And it's a great story from Steve Spurrier, who said to one of his defensive coordinators as he was letting him go out the door, I can't fire myself, So you either got to be willing to let people go on the staff or go down with the ship. He chose to go down with the ship. I think you see what he's doing at Central Michigan now, obviously putting points on the board and having some success there. So he was not one of the ones that I would say what not to do, other than you got to be willing to have the hard conversations with the people around you that aren't getting it done to make the changes necessary.
I just remember him going ape on the sidelines there, and I didn't know if you can say that. I guess he's a white guy, so I'm not going to get in the jackpot here. But
so Brian Polian was also notorious for going absolutely bananas on the sideline at Nevada. So I was around plenty of those coaches: Jimbo, McElwain, Brian Polian, who had plenty of animation on the sideline.
A lot of fun, Mark. It was a pleasure having you on the program, and nice recollection of some old memories there around the radio stations there, and that was the heyday of the whole business. So everybody was having a good time, and unfortunately, that landscape, it's like Death Valley by comparison.
When we're at 8:00 this morning, you're doing a daily huddle. Where can people find the daily huddle?
Oh yeah.
So the daily huddle, you can find it on YouTube. It live streams through YouTube. It's got his own YouTube channel, the Nudelberg Daily Huddle. You can also find us on LinkedIn through the live stream. If you go to my father, Steve Nudelberg's page, you'll get a notification that he's gone live. So either through YouTube or LinkedIn, it's a great networking event. It's a great time to come together with people of the community, other leaders within the community, and share some good news in the morning.
All right, we might need a little pick-me-up message from Steve Nudelberg.
Would love to have
on
you
show.
guys there for it.
Coming in here dragging hair's a mess, trying to debate whether to shave or not. I mean, no, we need to get that motivation and get this thing really rolling here. So, Mark, it was a pleasure, man. Thanks so much for being.
Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, very good, Marc Nudelberg, ladies and gentlemen.
That was great.
That was interesting, right?
That was great.
Yeah. No, his old man was a legendary, what would come up with these bizarre deals, like huge money. And, it was always involved, very much in sports sales. When that was in its heyday, Lubie, when you could go out there and, people were diving in front of each other. Like you were Roger Goodell with NFL rights saying, well, wait a minute, I want to be the mortgage company on that show.
Exactly.
So, well, we already have 3 that we're endorsing here. Are we whores in this business? What do you think, Lubie?
A bit.
When you're rolling, I mean, it was pretty much like the Live Tour golf sellout. I mean, which, wow, what's going on with that, man? What do you make of that?
I don't know. I think
What's
it'll.
going to happen with that? I mean, is that going to be ultimately the ruination of the game? Where these guys getting screwed all this time by the PGA, and they're just making an example of it? Is the Saudi money really cleaning up their image there? It seems like everybody's mashugana over this. And it will ultimately dilute, a little bit the PGA Tour. There's no question about it. I don't know. Will it have the kind of impact? I mean, people wrote off the American Football League there when you had the New York Titans and they couldn't draw 3,000 fans. I don't know. Were those games well attended? The Titans. Mark Taliaferro, man, was the quarterback. Mark
No,
Taliaferro.
no
Mike
idea.
Tolliver. That's how you pronounce it. Mike Tolliver. It was spelled Taliaferro, but it was like Tolliver, like Toliver. Mike Tolliver. Remember that guy? No. Neither did the NFL. They weren't too concerned until they signed Joe Willie. People debate whether Joe Willie should be in the Hall of Fame. Joe Willie is the reason that we're here today in anticipation of tomorrow, my friends. He was the man that made the transition. He was to football what Jim Morrison was to music, right? Riders on the Storm. He was an innovator, my friends, a revolutionary. And you would look at, somebody, imagine this, Louis, this might be something that a young guy, see, you're smart enough not to do this. I don't think you look at the stats and go, yeah, well, he only completed 50% of his passes. You've used that one, have you? Where do you stand on that? I mean, I don't think this one is a surefire. I don't care if the guy never completed a pass. Joe Willie is a Hall of Famer.
That have, that's why Jerry Jones is in the Hall of Fame. I mean, an impact on the game, and Namath had it. Look, statistically, he wasn't where some of the other quarterbacks were, but I mean, he belongs in the Hall of Fame. It's like Lynn Swann. Lynn Swann statistically was in, but he made big plays in big moments. So that matters. We do that all the time with sports. Where look, Zach Thomas doesn't have those big moments. Brian Urlacher does. That's why Zach Thomas will eventually get in, but it's going to take him more time. And Urlacher's in because he was a part of the Bear defense that went to a Super Bowl. Like, it's just the big moments are how we define sports. And Namath was a part of one of the biggest moments ever. He made the guarantee and he backed it up. And then that changed professional sports forever. The NFL reigned supreme. It wouldn't have otherwise.
There are certain incidents in my life that left an indelible impression. Some favorable, some not so favorable. But I will never forget that day in 1968 when he's rolling in there for the championship game, and I had the souvenir stand by the players' parking lot, and everybody in the world is wondering, where the hell is Joe Namath, man? He hasn't showed up yet. It's like 12 o'clock. And we're getting ready to shut down the people are already in the stadium. We're getting ready to shut down the stand, and then supported by two of the hottest Swedish models you've ever seen in a fur coat. They were all matching, I think wearing matching fur coats, all three of them. These two models are literally holding Joe up as if he was being carted off the field to bring him into the stadium for that game that he eventually won with a dramatic pass to Don Maynard. To beat the Raiders and trigger their appearance in the Super Bowl in 1969, which to this day, Don Shula, from the grave, he still can't believe that he got beat by the stinking New York Jets. And that started the whole thing, right, with the AFL. The NFL, they were non-believers. They'd crushed the Packers, had crushed the AFL competition in the first two Super Bowls, and everybody was like, what kind of a joke is this, huh? Yep. Next thing you know, let's talk some merger.
Exactly.
I'll tell you what, a lot of people would like to merge with Texas Roadhouse. Ed Garcia is going to be with us as part of the great time that we always have going old school with Tony Segreto. And Tony's coming up next year. Also brought to you by Catholic Health Services, one of the finest organizations you will ever come across, and certainly in the medical field where you would have to say that health care, the word care, has become very tenuous in terms of whether or not the people actually care about the patients anymore. Not true with Catholic Health Services. They're a great organization. All right, Tony's a great guy. We love him. I owe him a dinner at Texas Roadhouse, which I'm laughing at because it was almost like winning a bet, right? Not only am I going to get to eat there, Lubie, you're invited too, but I know I could probably go there for the three of us with less than a stick and get out of there okay. Imagine it. Honestly. At a steakhouse. So I don't mind paying this one off. Tony did cash that bet, right? I bet against Serena in the first round.
He made fun of you the whole show. He spent a whole show making fun of you. He had Serena.
Well, he wanted me to be wrong about Serena, but which is fine. I don't know that I
Once
thought she was going
matches.
to lose that match because I thought it was a setup. I really did, and it was fine. You know what? That story worked out great, and the tournament has been brilliant. And now that you think back, that's kind of ancient history because it ended on Friday with Serena. But that was, I mean, tremendous to begin this tournament. I mean, to bring attention to it, and now you're watching some dynamite stuff going on. And I'm hoping the interest in the U.S. Open hasn't faded. Kyrgios, though, the bad boy that everybody loves now, he got knocked out last night in 5 sets, but he was injured and lost a 5-setter to a guy that nobody's ever heard of named Kachanov. I think that's how you pronounce it. I think it's Kachanov, and it was a 5-set serving bloodbath, pretty much. Coco got knocked out also at the U.S. Open. All right, we're coming back with more in a moment here. Tony Segreto going to join us next to go old school on the Defo Show. That's Mike Lubie Lubitz. I'm Jeff DeForest. I thought Marc Nudelberg, when you were asking that question, was going to interrupt you and say, could you say it in English, dadgummit? Back with more in a moment. Now that. I think you had the same pace in your delivery there as you did on the Bobby Bowden question. So 8:02.
Tony Segreto here. Let me ask you a question. What do you look for when you go out to eat? Good food, obviously, friendly atmosphere, not too loud, but good energy, reasonable prices, and a place where you feel comfortable. All those ingredients, no pun meant there, are hard to find unless you're talking about the Texas Roadhouse. You see, they encompass all of those attributes. Really, really good food, amazing atmosphere, good for a family, good for a date, or just a night out for yourself, and prices that will make you extremely happy. Their ribs unmatched. Steaks hand cut every day. Everything, and I mean everything, is made on site, including their incredible bread. It's the one day, folks, that you can forget about low-carb diets. Trust me when I tell you, Texas Roadhouse, your restaurant, your destination when you say, where should we go and eat tonight?
From the newly renovated sports bar to the beautiful bayside views captured at the Tiki Bar, Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill has it all. Located at mile marker 104, the Big Chill also offers waterfront dining while experiencing breathtaking sunset views of the Florida Keys. It's simply the hottest spot in the Keys to cool off. That's Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill at mile marker 104 in Key Largo. For more information, call today at 305-453-9066.